Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about economics. So a subscriber asked a long time ago, so I apologize. It's been like 6 months, maybe a year. You asked me to talk about economics, but not necessarily the theory. We wanted to talk about the perspective from the industry, kind of the dynamics of it. What do people think about it? So I'm just going to dive on in here. This is not going to be conceptual at all. This is just my opinion and my perspectives, but it kind of shows some of the feuds and the groups that exist inside the economic community, as well as how we fit into the banking community and other types of analytics. All right, so to start off here, we have multiple groups. So we're going to kind of dive into the little aspects that create the groups, and then you can be in subgroups. So first off, you have general principles of economics. So you could be, there's kind of three main areas, right? You have capitalism, socialism, and communism. They're three different tracks, they're three different methodologies, and then you can kind of break these up into economic lines of thought, which are going to be more along the lines of like classical economists, neoclassical, Keynesian, Marxism. So Marxism obviously is going to be communism. But anyways, you have these different thoughts, and more or less you have capitalists believe in markets, free markets, right? Optimizing through businesses and competition. Socialism is somewhat of a planned methodology, and then communism is more of like a forceful planning. But again, the thing that really differentiates economists is typically the fact that you have a group that believes in no economic planning, you have a group that believes in pure economic planning, and to add clarity to that, most people in all these groups don't actually fall into some extreme. So you might believe in capitalism, for example, but you might believe there's a necessity to do some planning. There might be different things that businesses can't do optimally, so therefore you need governments to do different parts of making a society run. And then on the far side, right, you might have communism or socialism, and they might believe in pure planning, but they also might want that competition and some of that success that's been seen with capitalism and capital markets, and so they might try to blend them. I want to make blatantly clear here, the United States is not a pure capitalist society. I know a lot of people think that. We are more or less a socialistic democracy with some capitalism bred into it. And the capitalism, in fact, at least in my opinion, the data I've seen, makes us successful. But I'm not going to get into those nitty-gritty details. And you have these different ideologies, which is fine. But then you start looking at things from the economic views, which you have microeconomics, and then you have macroeconomics. So the difference between the two is just how you go about studying things. So microeconomics is going to start from the bottom up. They're going to look at all the little details. They want to see how people make decisions, and then they want to take all those decisions and interactions and blow those up to an economy perspective, okay? Macroeconomics, though, is going to be a top-down approach. It's going to be looking at the entire economy, and it's going to be trying to figure out how the big pieces work, but they don't really care about the little pieces, but they kind of draw conclusions about the little pieces based on the big picture. These will somewhat align with the different ideologies. So microeconomics typically aligns with capitalism and research, but again, not always. Macroeconomics will typically align more with like socialism, but again, it depends on your views. And then inside of these different groups, right, you have micro and macro basically. You're going to have different types of people that focus more on theoretical or more on mathematical. So for example, let's take classical economics here, more or less driven by capitalism. You're going to have people that purely study the theoretical constructs of like supply and demand, and that's awesome. And they're going to look at different kind of ideologies, and they're going to do some testing, but they're not going to do a lot of testing. They're more stuck in the old world economics. And then you're going to have the mathematicians. So instead of the theorists, you're going to have the applied people. They're the ones that are building time series models. They're the ones that are doing complex formulas and calculations. And this is where some of the divides start occurring, and then we'll kind of go back. So those in the mathematical realm, we typically call these econometricians. So econometrics is the field of study. They use models to actually look at things in a scientific way. The theorist might still use some models, but most of their models are just derived off of theory. They're not actually derived off of pure data because, again, it's really hard to test economic theories, at least large ones, without manipulating people in a society. And since most economists view this as unethical, we don't do this type of testing. But you have this feud, and in industry and in academia, The econometricians hate the theoretical, economists. The economists that are theoretical think the mathematicians are blindly applying random math without actually thinking through the theory. And so there's this feud between them, and these two parties exist, again, in all the different areas. And then when you start zooming back again here from an industry perspective, right, a lot of economists are social justice warriors, and this, in my opinion here, is completely ruined the field of study as a whole. A lot of times when people ask what I studied, I explain, I'm a statistician, for example, which is what I really do for my job. I'm an econometrics professional. I work in econometrics. But I really hate using the word economist because so many people have gone out there in the industry, in academia, and they're social justice warriors, and that's fine, you're a socialist. But the issue is that the way they do their research is not scientific and is not supported by the academic community. It should not be, but it is. They go out and they say, I want to prove that we need to implement these programs to help these people, okay? That's wrong. You shouldn't do research like that. You should be going back to questioning, like, I want to know how this type of policy would affect different people. And you phrase it as a question. From a lot of the research I've seen, everyone's forcing the issue, creating nonsensical garbage that comes out. The results are counterintuitive. And then somebody more on the trained side doing like econometrics, for example, or even like the theoretical side will prove that these are completely wrong and nonsensical. And so then you have this feud again between the social justice warriors, and these are more like the public policy experts. They're kind of feuding with the theoretical economists because the two ideologies don't match. One side's trying to use theory and logic. The other side's trying to make their own points. Again, this is my personal opinion. And so what ends up happening is economics is this messed up field of study, which I absolutely love, but I'm embarrassed of all at the same time. Because in industry, right, a lot of times we want econometricians because I want someone who can do statistics and mathematics. I don't need some guy with his head in the clouds thinking about theoretical constructs. But at the same time, as an industry professional, I need people with a blend, right? I need people that can do the math. I need people that can model things statistically. But I also need people that can think things through on a theoretical side. And so when you start blending this all together and the word economics gets thrown out in the industry a lot of people don't hire economists because you're not really specialized in finance, so we don't really like to hire you for financial jobs and banking jobs. And then you're not really a statistician, so they don't like to hire you for statistics. Right? You have this weird blend of sets, which is an advantage in its own. But I just think that a lot of academia and a lot of the social justice warriors in general have kind of tarnished the name to a non-science field. Like people view us as kind of like a touchy-feely area. And so this causes a lot of tension between academics, right, between each other. This causes a lot of tension between industry practitioners. That's kind of economics, though. It's this weird blend of like feuds between all these parties. So you might be, for example, like a communist who believes in doing econometrics. You might be a socialist and believe in econometrics. You could be, right, in a free market capitalist and believe in econometrics. Or you could be, a theoretical economic professional in all these different areas. So you have these different blendings of ideologies. And then, of course, just like politics, economics is very tied into politics. There is no absolute value. So you don't say like, I only believe in like this one thing and I'm far left or far right or far middle, whatever for an economic realm here, right? There's three parties. But you usually have some blending of like, I agree with these things. I've seen academic support and research to do this. And how do I tie this into my field of study? Anyways, I do love economics. So I have come to grips with the fact that I am probably more an economist than I am anything else that I've studied. It's more or less my roots. It's my desire, my passions. It's what I read. It's what I really enjoy. But again, there's a lot of different angles on it that make it seem not as rigorous, not as academic, not as scientific as other fields. And that's fine. I guess you have your opinions and your desires to research things. But at the end of the day, economics is great. I'm just going to put a little note here at the end. One of my favorite economists is Fisher Black, who works in the finance industry. He has been blackballed by the economic community. He has been blackballed by the finance community. He has been blackballed by the industry in a lot of ways. But a lot of his work, a lot of his theoretical constructs he predicted have actually come true. So I'd encourage you to read his book. I'll put it below. It's on equilibriums in business. But anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.